Hey, everybody, what's going on? This your man, Big B, Brian Hanley, and welcome back to Steelers Almighty. Man, I appreciate you guys being here. We got a real good show for you guys today, man. A lot to go over. Lot of stuff going on for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, man. Let's take a look at it. First things first, the Steelers are all in on 2025. The moves that they had made, it equals that the Steelers are trying to win as many football games as possible, including winning in the playoffs. Next up, the pros and the cons of extending TJ Watt. We'll take a dive into that, what it looks like to extend him, what it looks like if the Steelers don't want to extend him. We'll take a look at both sides of that. Then good corners are always better than safeties. Lot of pushback on the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade. I've been in favor of the trade. It's not that I don't miss Minkah or think that Minkah was a good player, but corners, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, are just better than safeties, better for a defense. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then Mike Tomlin. Is 2025 the season that Mike Tomlin is actually on the hot seat, or should I say after the season? But does he finally get on that hot seat that a lot of people think he should be on? We'll talk and take a dive into what's going on with Mike Tomlin and this season. So appreciate everybody being in here, man. Thank you guys very much, as always, for joining up. You can always find Steelers Almighty, youtube.com/Steelers Almighty. Anywhere that you have social media, Steelers Almighty is there. And if you prefer the audio version of this podcast, anywhere that you get a podcast, make sure you click on Steelers Almighty. So remember, everybody, like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Continue to get in the comments section like you guys always do. You know, we love going back and forth, and always hit that notification bell so you know exactly when Steelers Almighty content comes up. Let's get into this, people. Let's get into this. So first things first, the Steelers are all in on 2025. Look, it is an improved roster from 2024. I don't even see, and I said this, I'm not sure that any sane person that follows the Pittsburgh Steelers could tell you and look at the roster right now and look at the roster at the same time last year and not say the Pittsburgh Steelers have a better football team. They do. They've upgraded in several positions. They have a better roster. Now, the question, does that make them Super Bowl favorites or anything crazy? No, not saying that. But the roster is better, and last year's roster won 10 football games. Let's keep that in mind. It didn't end the way that we all wanted it to, thought it would, but they still won 10 football games, and that was a very, very flawed roster. And I'm not saying that this roster isn't flawed as well. But again, you look at it for player, position by position, there is no doubt that the Pittsburgh Steelers are better. I'm not saying it's leaps and bounds better. I'm not saying that. But to say that they're not any better, you're either just being negative about it or you don't pay attention. Either one is fine. But if you're being honest, you know that the Pittsburgh Steelers are better. Don't listen to the national media and what they're trying to tell you, about how bad the Steelers are. This roster is better than the one last year. Does it still need to perform? Absolutely. 100%. But it doesn't mean that it's not better. It just doesn't mean that. And that's my whole thing. Look, they added veterans to this to be all in. They added veterans at key positions to be all in for this season. That's the whole thing. It's for this season. And I don't think that when you add those type of veterans that you're actually looking past this season. A 41-year-old quarterback, that's not the future. It isn't. You bring in a Jalen Ramsey. You would want Jalen Ramsey to be here for the next 2 to 3 years, but you're not expecting Jalen Ramsey to be here for the next decade. Darius Slay, that's a 1-year guy. He signed a 1-year contract. He's not the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he is still a good player. Jalen Ramsey is a very good player. Aaron Rodgers, good football player. They're bringing these older veterans in because they're saying, hey, we're all in for this year. We're trying to win. Now, I know a lot of people think, well, if you're not trying to win the Super Bowl, you're not trying. I'll be okay with that. I can live with that. But the Steelers are in this thing to win. But the one thing that they didn't is they did not sacrifice their future. And I've been preaching that for the last month. Go all in. Be as good as you possibly can. And this was before the Steelers made any of the trades, before Aaron Rodgers even officially signed with the Steelers. I was screaming, just go all in on the season, but just don't sacrifice your future. Well, the Steelers have done that. They didn't give away any mid to early round draft picks other than the DK Metcalf signing, which again, DK Metcalf, 27 years old, you expect him to be around for a little while. So they didn't give up any of those things, when they brought in Jonnu Smith. That's a late round pick swap in 2027. No draft picks were given up, to bring in these guys. So, and again, the Steelers' future can be very bright. You still have to pick the right players. You still have to play well, but they didn't sacrifice that. 12 picks going into next year's draft. They still have those, Do they have the opportunity to swindle and wheel and deal and do all the things? Yes, they still have that opportunity. So I like the fact that they are all in on this season. They didn't sacrifice their future, and they picked up good football players at positions that are going to help the Steelers. Look, there's a ton of people out there that don't agree with the Jonnu Smith. They're bringing him in. I say, why not? You're foolish if you believe that is the wide receiver 2. I don't believe he's a wide receiver 2. But I do know Arthur Smith's offense doesn't really call that often for a wide receiver 2. It's a luxury. It'd be nice to have. I think the Steelers, for them to really, really compete, they have to have one. But it's not 100% of a requirement for this offense to move the football. It just isn't that. We saw it last year. They were still able to move the football from time to time. Let's not get carried away, Big B. It's not like the Steelers were blowing the doors off of people, just racking up the yards and racking up the points. They weren't. They absolutely were not. But Jonnu Smith helps that. He helps it. Again, whether you're catching the ball from wide receiver 2, a tight end, slot, wherever you're lined up, if you can move the chains, move the chains. And that's what he's going to bring to the table here. A lot of people say, well, he hadn't had a great season. He only had that one in Miami. He doesn't have to be great. Like everybody, and I've been stressing this basically the last week. Every player on your football team doesn't have to be great. That is not Super Bowl champions. Everybody isn't great that steps onto the field for them. The Eagles, everybody wasn't great. You just need people doing their jobs. Some are going to do their jobs at a high level. Some are going to be great, but everybody isn't. And that's okay. So Jonnu Smith doesn't have to be great. He just has to do what's asked of him at a high level. Great. Let's make it work. Again, it's an added weapon that the Steelers needed. And we love Darnell Washington. He's an upgrade as a pass catcher, not as a blocker. Hell no, not as a blocker. But as a pass catcher, he's an upgrade. I like the move. So the Steelers are better. Minkah wasn't in the Pittsburgh Steelers' future. Let's just get to that right now. I love Minkah Fitzpatrick. I've been stressing for 2 years that they were paying him too much and not asking him to do enough. I don't even believe that that Minkah can't do the things that he used to do. I'm still under the impression that he can do that. But the Steelers weren't asking him to. Part of the reason is they didn't trust the corners. They did not trust the corners. So you needed that last line of defense. If you upgrade the corners, you can still have somebody back there doing what Minkah's doing, or have them moving around doing a little bit more, but you're not paying that guy $18.5 million to be the last line of defense. That is where the difference is that, okay, we have better corners. Now you don't have to pay a safety to be back there to do those things. You don't have to pay him that kind of money. You shouldn't be paying him that kind of money. And that's my whole thing, is that I like Minkah. I thought he was great. I still think he's got stuff left in the tank. But as we'll talk about later, a corner, especially a top 10 corner, is better than a top flight safety. It's just period, end of story. But like I mentioned, we will talk about that a little later. So, but Minkah also wasn't going to be in the plans for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's another thing, is that he was going to count $24 million against the cap next year, and that was the last year on his contract. There is no way in hell that the Pittsburgh Steelers were going to pay him that. They weren't going to take that hit. So they traded him this year. Again, a year early versus a year late. Because even if Minkah, look, you think the Steelers were going to extend him and pay him more money? They weren't going to do that. Minkah Fitzpatrick was getting traded next year. So why not trade him this year, upgrade at corner, and move on? It was the smart move. It's not always the popular thing to do, but it was the smart move. Pittsburgh Steelers are all in for 2025, ladies and gentlemen. They just are. They made the move. It's outside the norm. Some of the things that they did, I think that's part of what Steeler fans, we just can't believe it. We're shell-shocked right now that we did so many things that are outside the norm that other teams have done, but we just haven't done. And now we're trying to get used to it on the fly, and it's difficult. It's difficult for me, but we'll figure it out. And to be honest with you, it's what was best for the Steelers for this particular season. And again, it's what's best for this season without sacrificing anything in seasons to come. That's what I love about this, man. Let's go to the poll question. So poll number 1, what do you think about the Steelers' decision to part ways with Minkah Fitzpatrick? A, smart move, frees up cap space for future signings. B, risky decision. We should have kept him. C, unsure. Need to see how the roster shakes out. Or D, I trust Omar Khan. They know what they are doing. Make sure you put a 1 in front of the number, or in front of the letter, excuse me, so we know exactly what poll question you are answering. Let's move on, people. So, what are the pros and cons about getting rid of TJ Watt? Or extending TJ Watt, should I say? Look, it's about 50-50. Anytime we bring up the conversation, it is 50-50 in the chat. It's a lot of people want to get rid of him and say trade him, get as much as you can. A lot of people say, no, he's a Steeler for life. He's earned the money. He can help us pay the man. So, I was actually, when I thought about doing this, I was going to put in, the majority of you guys want to do this and the majority of you guys want to do that. I couldn't do it, and me, I'm going to be as honest as I possibly can. It's 50-50 on what Steeler fans think about it. Well, if it's 50-50, let's break it down. First, let's start with the cons. He's going to be 36 years old if he signs a new 5-year contract at the end of that deal. 36 years old. And if the Steelers pay him what reportedly he is wanting to be paid, it means he's going to be making $40 million or a little more at 36 years old, playing an edge rusher position. I don't know. Look, I know the first thing somebody's going to say, well, look at Cam Hayward. You're right. Look at Cam Hayward. He's an anomaly. You name another 35-year-old defensive tackle that's playing first-team All-Pro that's playing at the level that Cam Hayward is playing. And you ever go back and count them. Not many. So that's an anomaly. Asking a guy that has been hurt. I'm not saying TJ Watt gets hurt all the time because that's not true. I think people look at it because he got hurt at the end of 2023, the last game of the year. Well, he's injury prone. Well, he played 7. He just got hurt and he missed a playoff game. He missed the game, big game. I get it. And the year before that, he had gotten hurt, missed 10 games. So I understand, but he's not really injury prone. And even last year, while he got hurt, he was he was out there playing. Now, it wasn't very productive, but he was out there playing those last 4 games because he got hurt in the Philly game. That was after he had 2 sacks in the game and was causing havoc all over the place. So keep that in mind too. But he will be 36 years old if he signs a new 5-year deal. Now we have to mention the slippage. Look, 2024, I thought he had a good season. Up until he got hurt, and again, he got hurt against Philly. I thought he was having a good year. I really did. I didn't think there was anything wrong with I think he got hurt against Philly. It's either Philly or Baltimore. I can't remember. But either way, I thought he was having a good year. Not his best, but he was having a good season. But once he got hurt, while he was still out there, away went, okay, teams have to account for TJ Watt by double teaming him. They didn't have to do that anymore. The chipping him. They didn't have to do that anymore. And the Steelers suffered because of that, And you're not blaming TJ Watt. It's just he was out there. They were able to block him without having to account for him like they normally do. Hurt the back end, hurt everything. It is what it is. Hurt his ankle. I think he had a broken thumb that they just didn't talk about, either that or a torn ligament in his thumb. Well, it's tough to play like that, man. But he was out there. He was battling. But again, y'all know my philosophy. I don't excuse bad play just because you're hurt. If you're hurt, that doesn't mean, okay, you get to play bad. I'm not saying you're playing as what you would be at 100%, but you can't play bad. And I would venture to say the last 4 games, TJ Watt was playing bad. He was out there. He was giving everything that he had, but it just wasn't good enough. That was a problem. So keep that in mind, man. We did see it the last 4 games. And there were a couple other games where TJ just wasn't doing anything. Didn't, like the Indianapolis game. You didn't even know he was out there playing, which is troublesome. And he wasn't hurt then at all. Just they took him out of the football game. Okay, fine. And I know what you'll say. Well, they accounted to him. They put so many resources to take him away. Well, they did that. Well, then nobody else did anything. Because Indianapolis, until basically 8 minutes left in the game, was going up and down the field on the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's too much for that kind of high-priced defense. Having said that, we saw that with TJ Watt a few games. So will he be the same player in 3 years? Now, I brought this up on the live that we did yesterday, is that if you're going to pay TJ Watt, if that's what you decide to do, then you have to be certain that 3 years from now that he's going to be able to get you 15 sacks in that season. Because if you're only paying him for 2 years, then just give him a 2-year contract or a 3-year and string it out, whatever the case may be. And you're also not going to be able to pay him $40 million over that time period. It'll be more than that, which would be crazy if he's wanting the same amount of money. But that's part of it, is that you can't just sit here and say, well, we hope TJ is going to be good 3 years down the road. We're still going to pay him this money. Absolutely not. Now, granted, you don't have a crystal ball to be able to know for a 100% fact whether he's going to be capable of doing that. But that's the gamble. The gamble is 3 years from now, TJ Watt's going to be capable of getting you 15 sacks. It can't be, well, we paid him this money, a year and a half in, man, 2 years in, he's not that guy anymore. He's an 8-sack-a-year guy. Guys that get 8 sacks a year can't make $40 million. I'm sorry. And that's the gamble of what is going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You have to make that gamble. You have to know that that's what he's going to be doing. Again, you don't have a crystal ball, but that's what you would be paying. That's what you're paying for, is to get another 3 years of top-notch production. And top-notch production for a guy making that kind of money is a minimum of 15 sacks, in my opinion. Somebody else might say less. I don't know. But you're getting paid top dollar. I need top dollar results. To me, as an edge rusher, that means 15 sacks in a season, and he's got to be able to do that for 3 years. Do you think that's possible? Do you think that's a reality? I guess realistic. We'll see. Pittsburgh Steelers going to have to make that decision. Now, let's talk about some of the pros. He's still an elite pass rusher. There's no question about that. He is an elite pass rusher. Maybe not as good as Garrett. I know that'll piss some Steeler fans off, but you have to acknowledge how good Myles Garrett is. You have to. You know, we live in reality on Steelers Almighty, people. We don't live in fantasy land. Myles Garrett is outstanding. But let's just say they're even, or if you even believe that Watt is better, okay, great. That equals elite. He's an elite pass rusher. So he has to be accounted for when he's healthy. That's one thing that I think kind of goes unnoticed, is that when he is healthy, you have to, and I just mentioned this, you have to use resources, to block TJ Watt, because if you don't, he wrecks your football play. It's just that simple. He wrecks your football play if you don't account for him. We've seen it so many times. Teams want to single block him. He beats it. He beats up the quarterback. That's just something that TJ Watt does. So in doing that, that's why it was so important to get bigger, more athletic, more explosive on the defensive line. Because again, if you're putting all these resources towards him, we need defensive linemen that can do a few things. Derek Harmon comes to mind. If they're going to single block Derek Harmon, he's got to make you pay for that. He's got to make you pay for that, especially if you're going to double team Cam too. Got to make you pay for that. So he's still an elite pass rusher. He still has to be dealt with resources, or he's going to wreck your football play. Another thing that kind of goes under the radar, because he's an edge rusher. TJ Watt's elite against the run, ladies and gentlemen. He is elite, especially when he comes underneath. He comes underneath, makes a play, basically hops underneath, throws his outside shoulder, rips through, and still stays in fundamental position that even if a running back tries to bounce outside, he's there. The only thing a tackle could do is hold him or block him in the back, which are penalties. Now, the ref's got to call all those penalties. That's a different conversation for a different day. But TJ Watt is elite as an edge rusher, or as an edge playing against the run. Again, you combine that with what he brings as a pass rush, the guy's worth a lot of money, man. He's worth a lot of money. He's also a team leader. He's good in the locker room. That can't go unnoticed, especially since we lost a leader, Minkah Fitzpatrick. Look, there's all these stupid rumors going around about how Minkah may have been a bad guy in the locker room. No, he wasn't. He wasn't a bad guy. Or maybe they'll be true. Either way, I know he was a leader of the football team, bottom line, and TJ Watt is that too. It's risky to give all those guys up. Very risky. Not saying you can't have other guys step into the role, but you've got a guy that's as good as he is, that's also a leader, a good guy. Yeah, that's somebody that you would want to lean on, and as far as teammates are concerned. So losing that in the locker room, that's something that you just can't ignore, ladies and gentlemen. You wouldn't want to ignore that. So he's good for the culture. And what I mean by good for the culture is you pay the guy that you drafted, developed, been phenomenal, you pay the man. It's just that simple. And I know you've paid him once already. You can pay him again, especially if he's still really good. And he is still really, really good. So you don't want to be this franchise known that, okay, we got this guy, he's a future Hall of Famer, but because he's 30, which for some reason people think is ancient, he's 30, well, got to cut him, time to get rid of him. Especially if you think he can give you 3 years of good football. You remember what I said, 3 years is the key. If he can do that, you don't want to just get rid of somebody like that. That would be foolish. So it's tricky. It's tricky, man. But it's worth the discussion. Let's get to the poll question. So poll 2, what is the most important factor in deciding whether to extend TJ Watt's contract? Is it A, performance and ability to stay healthy? B, his leadership and impact on team culture. C, the financial implications towards the cap. Or D, the depth of talent available on the D line. Very, very interesting. Now, for me, the difference is that the whole cap thing, it's all about the percentage. So many people get caught up in the dollar amount of somebody making. And I talked about it. Hey, is he worth 40 million? Okay, whatever. But again, if you decide to pay him, the number isn't really that big of a deal. It's how much of the percentage of the cap is he hitting? Because if it's 42 million, but it's 8% of the cap, you will live with that. You'll live with that. You know. Now, if it's 50 million and it's 19% of the cap, that's a different guy. Then it would not be worth it. I don't care who you are. That's the problem. And that's what we have to start kind of regenerating our mind to kind of start thinking about the percentage of the cap versus the actual dollar amount. Way more important. Way more important. We're at the halftime, ladies and gentlemen. And first, I want to thank everybody again for all the support that you guys have given Steelers Almighty. I appreciate that. Look, quick reminder, memberships. You're going to start seeing that if you were a member previously that you got kicked out from being a member. It's because we made some changes to the memberships. What are those changes? We lowered the prices. We looked at what we were doing and what we could do. We just needed to lower the prices, and that's what we did. Unfortunately, when you do that, YouTube kicks you out from being a member, so you have to re-up. So again, make sure you re-up if you're not, or if you were already a member. And if you're not a member, you may want to take a look at it, and even go up a tier or two on what you were thinking about to become a member. Same thing with reoccurring members. Level 4, all pro level, you get that all 22 of entire football game breakdowns. So if you like the breakdowns that you've seen the last couple of days with John O. Smith and Jalen Ramsey, we did one a week ago with Aaron Rodgers, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. If you like those, you'll be getting the same thing on a weekly basis during the season, breaking down the entire football game. Got to be level 4 or higher to be able to do that. So we appreciate you guys. Also, merch is here. Again, Steelers Almighty Shop. Make sure you go there, pick up your merch. We got hats, Thunderbird shirts, Thunderbird glasses. Got everything that you need over there. Make sure you go pick up your merchandise today. We appreciate you. Let's get back to it. So, I've been fighting this fight all week since we make the trade. Good corners are more important than safeties. There are so many people that are like, well, I mean, we opened up a hole by not having Minkah Fitzpatrick. And don't get me wrong, you're right, but it's not like that hole can't be filled by somebody. It's almost like we think that Minkah was there. Nobody else can play free safety for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's it. That's just not true. That's not true. And I'm not even talking about it being Jalen Ramsey, because there's reports that he's going to split some time between free safety and nickel, depending on the personnel groups offenses run out there against the Steelers. I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about it just in what if Ramsey's at nickel, slot corner, somebody else can play free safety on this roster. And they may go out and find somebody else, because there's still some safeties out there that are available that can still play. So I don't know that it's over yet, but just don't worry. There is another person that can play free safety for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Somebody played it before Minkah Fitzpatrick. Somebody will play it after Minkah Fitzpatrick. So it's fine. But the main point is corners, way more important than safeties. Always have been, always will be. You go down the hierarchy of what's most important on a football team, you're going to get the corner way before you get to safety. Safety is down there near the bottom as far as how important they are. I'm not telling you they're not important. I'm just telling you as far as how important, it's not near as high as corner. It's just not, especially with the way the rules are and what you can do in coverage these days, or I guess I should say what you can't do in coverage these days. A corner is more important to be able to cut off routes, stay with guys, because a safety, used to be so valued because you could just blow a guy up, just knock his head off. You can't do that anymore. They don't allow you to do that anymore. So it is what it is. Here's a couple of things, the top safety salaries. Kirby Joseph, who was an all-pro last year, just got paid, $21.5 million. But for the Lions, but the Lions didn't win a playoff game last year. Anton Winfield, okay, he got paid in 2024. He makes $21 million. They were fourth in points, 19th in yards as far as the Bucks. They didn't win a playoff game last year. Derwin James, he makes over $19 million. They were second in points and 11th in yards. They didn't win a playoff game last year. Now, you may come up with some other reasons, but that still didn't equate to winning, paying your safety $19 million. Minkah Fitzpatrick, Steelers were 7th in points, 15th in yards, no playoff wins last year. And then Budda Baker, $18 million. They were 16th in points, 20th in yards, did not make the playoffs. So I bring that up to say is that those are the top 5 highest paid safeties in the National Football League as of today. Somebody gets paid after this, it is what it is. But as of today, those are the top 5. None of them won a playoff game. And you can come at me with all the excuses on why somebody's team didn't win. What I do know is that for the top 5 safeties in the league, it didn't equate to winning. Now, you can go look at the cornerback position, and you can say the same thing, actually, is that of the top 5, those guys didn't win either. But of those top 5, how good were their defenses? And there you have it. The defenses are better. You are going to have a better football team and a better defense if you have top flight corners versus average corners and top flight safeties. It's just that simple. Corners are more valuable. They get paid more. And usually that's kind of the telltale sign on who gets paid more. That's why wide receiver, more valuable than a corner. Why? They get paid more. Why do they get paid more? Because they bring more to the football game. Wasn't always that way. But now that it's a passing league, you've seen that trend change. Wide receivers are getting the bag. Corners still get it, but it's a little bit more few and far between. That's where the difference is, people. It's not so. Look, I absolutely love Minkah, but it didn't equate to winning. I know you say the same thing about TJ Watt, but if you're trying to tell me that you're going to compare an edge rusher and what they bring to the table versus a safety, I will flat out tell you they're going to lock you up in a padded room and throw away the key if that's what you're trying to compare them to. They are not the same, and neither is corner. It is important that we understand that. I get that we're all frustrated and hurt, but it's more important for not just the Steelers, any football team to have better cornerbacks than safeties. It's just that simple. Perfect example. Look at the Super Bowl champions from last year, the Philadelphia Eagles. What do they have? Reed Blankenship. He was our corner. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, no longer on the football team. The cornerbacks are. Now, obviously, they don't have Darius Slay. Darius Slay's a little older. They said, we don't want to pay that guy to continue on. Okay. But why? Because we have 2 corners that are really good, so we don't have to pay that guy. Steelers didn't have that luxury. They didn't have 2 corners that were that good, so they needed him. Great. But that's the difference. They have Reed Blankenship, which is not going to be confused with anybody about being a top 10 safety in the National Football League, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who the Eagles thought so highly of that he is no longer on the football team. And that's not saying that he's not a good football player. You never heard me say that. But what I did say is because they have the corners, they'll just find another safety that can do his job. Maybe it's up to snuff, maybe it isn't. But they'll find somebody that can do the job because they trust the guys that they have on the outside. That's all I'm trying to say, people. That's all I'm trying to say. I get it. It's frustrating. We don't like it. But that's the difference. That is literally the difference. So let's go to the poll. Let's go to the poll. Which position do you believe will have a greater impact on the defense improvement and success? A, cornerbacks. B, safeties. C, defensive line. Or D, linebackers. This is a good one. This is a good one here. Corners, safeties, defensive line, or linebackers. Make sure you put a 3 in front of the letter that you choose so we know exactly what poll question that you are answering. Okay. So let me grab here. Mike Tomlin. Is this the year that Mike Tomlin is finally on the hot seat? Or should I phrase it, is this the year that Mike Tomlin needs to do something or he's going to be on the hot seat? I think that's better phrasing. And I like that. I like that approach a lot better. Here's the thing. We talked about this earlier. 2025, the Pittsburgh Steelers have gone on all in. Now, some people define all in is trading high draft picks for people and not giving up, like don't give up Minkah, trade a second or third round pick for Jalen Ramsey. I find that's just stupid. At some point, you have to look out for your future, and the Pittsburgh Steelers have done that, but they're still going all in for this season. But what does that mean? Well, they're trying to win a playoff game. 8 years is long enough. It's long enough. And they're making moves in order to win a playoff game. In some people's mind, well, that's all you want to win is a playoff game. That's not all you want to win, but that's a damn start, isn't it? I mean, winning a playoff game. Look, I've told you guys this before. There's got to be building blocks to success. It can't just be here and here. Every now and then you'll luck up and that'll happen with somebody. But when that does happen, they can't sustain the success because they don't have the building blocks of it. They just got lucky and ascended and we're up here. But when things get tough, they fall back. The Steelers are trying to build it. Okay, great. I understand that. But 8 years is enough of not winning a playoff game. So the Steelers are trying to do that this year. They've made moves that say, we want to win a playoff game. Veteran quarterback, veteran corners, somebody in the slot, as another veteran corner, bringing in a veteran second tight end. They are making plays or making moves and maneuvers to win a playoff game. If not, what are the moves for? That would be my question. If the goal isn't to try to win a playoff game, and I know you're going to say the goal should be a Super Bowl, fine. But if it isn't that, then why did you even make the move? Should have just ran out there with Mason Rudolph, didn't trade for Jalen or John O, and just, this is the roster. That's not what they did. They're trying to win. And whether it's Super Bowl, playoff game, 2 games, division, whatever, the Pittsburgh Steelers are trying to win, and Mike Tomlin's at the head of that. Now, we talked about a hot seat. Is the hot seat warranted? I think, yeah. Look, 5 straight one-and-dones in the playoffs. That's not going to cut it. That is just not going to cut it. And several of those games, the Steelers have gotten their ass kicked. That's the difference. I'm going to be mad that the Steelers lose. I don't care how they lose. I'm going to be mad. But for you not to even be competitive in, I want to say, 4 of the 5 playoff losses, that's disgusting. The 4 of the 5 one-and-dones, you weren't even competitive. That's disgusting. And that's what I'm talking about. That right there. So, call it what you want, say what you want, but enough is enough. Enough is enough. It's time to win. Look, the 9-8 seasons, the 10-7 seasons, hell, even an 11-6 season. Sure, I'll be happy with 11-6, but if they don't win in the playoffs, it doesn't mean anything. Look, I am tired of hearing about the record or the streak of not having a losing season. Is it impressive? Yes. Has Mike Tomlin done some things with some football teams that should probably only win 5 games in a season? He absolutely has. Absolutely has. But okay, fine. He's a good coach. But what else? When are we going to start seeing the results? And I think that's what a lot of people, when it comes to this, is like, all right, when do we get to stop struggling? We're talking about this rebuild, and I've said it many times. The Steelers are the only team that I can think of that has gone through a rebuilding phase that has still won enough games and remained relevant. So because they do that, it takes longer for the rebuild to happen. Well, damn it, we need to start seeing some success from the rebuild. You rebuilt both offense and defensive lines. Where's the success? You're rebuilding the tight end room. We need success. You rebuilt the linebacker room. We need success. You're in the middle of rebuilding the wide receiver and cornerback room. We need success. That's what fans are upset about. It isn't that we're going through these things. Normal and sane fans understand that you have to rebuild. They get it. But how long does that take? Number one, I know it's going to take longer when you don't try, not necessarily tank, but when you don't go all in to rebuild, then it's going to take longer. The Steelers haven't embraced that. But when's enough enough? When does it stop? When does it stop? When does the success happen? And look, Mike Tomlin is not blameless. I know a lot of people want to blame, Kevin Colbert, and don't get me wrong, he's got a big hand in this. You want to blame Art Rooney II, but Mike Tomlin's not blameless. Like, who is the offensive coordinator that was hired before Arthur Smith? Now, I know who it is. I just don't repeat his name on this channel. We don't do that here. We don't, because it makes me sick to my stomach that a high school JV quarterback could go out and design just as many advanced plays as what that guy was doing. It was sickening. Mike Tomlin hired him. He didn't have to. Nobody held a gun to his head and said, you have to hire that guy, but he did it. He's run off good coaches. He's done that. So Mike Tomlin is not blameless in this. And as far as putting a roster together, team success, he's in it, man. And so, yes, to me, 2025 has to end in a playoff win. That is what success looks like, a playoff win. If anything short of that, he deserves to be on the hot seat. It's just that simple for me. All the 9-8s and the 10-7s, and like I said, give me an 11-6. But that needs to come with a playoff win. Otherwise, it didn't mean much. And I'm not saying, look, it is hard to win in the National Football League, people. It is so hard. And Mike Tomlin continuously does it at a winning level. And when I mean a winning level, above 500 level. He does that. But is that all you want? Is just above 500? Again, at some point, we need to start to see some success. And this needs to be the year. And the Steelers have done things to make this be the year. If you can't win it and you can't win in the playoffs now, then yeah. I'm not saying Mike Tomlin needs to be fired, but that seat needs to start heating up because now we're not seeing the success. So then what was the rebuild for? Yeah, we're still in it. We're still moving. But teams that rebuild, you start seeing them have success. The Steelers got to have that too, people. They got to have that too. Let's go to the poll question. With the nature of this offseason's moves, do you think Mike Tomlin has put himself on the hot seat for 2025? A, yes, it's all or nothing this year. B, yes, but we still have to leave. He will still have to leave on his own terms. C, no, but it will be the next for sure. It will be next season for sure. And D, no, Mike Tomlin will never be on the hot seat. There's a lot of people that believe that he will never be on the hot seat. Make sure you put 4 in front of the number that you are answering so you know so we know exactly what poll question you are answering. Now, look, we talked a whole lot about Steelers being all in for this season and the changes that are made. I think it's the changes are good. You can disagree with that, and that's okay. But the Steelers are doing things outside the norm. For years, we as fans have been screaming for the Pittsburgh Steelers to make splashes doing something. We don't always have to agree with the splashes, but at least they're doing something by saying what we have and what we have done is not good enough. We got to make a change somewhere to get better. It's all we can ask for. Now, it can blow up in their face. Absolutely. We don't have to like it. Absolutely. But at least they're doing something, because for so long it was, well, we're not doing anything. It's the status quo. We're not trying to move forward. We don't have any forward thinkers. Well, now it seems like maybe we have a couple of forward thinkers. Maybe the philosophy has changed a little bit. We got to do things that are a little bit outside of our comfort zone. And when I mean I mean fans' comfort zone, because for so long the Steelers had ingrained us with exactly how they're going to do things. And now it seems like, nope, we're going to do things a little bit differently. They just ripped the Band-Aid off. Okay, I'm with it. But I need the success. I need to see it. And I think that's partly part of the problem for Steelers fans is that we're cautiously optimistic. We're jaded. Let's just call it what it is. We're jaded. 8 years, no playoff wins, 5 one and dones. We're jaded. And now we got to figure this thing out. And we've just made some moves that, for all intents and purposes, are risky moves. And if they don't pan out, could be trouble. Could be trouble. Look, I appreciate you all, man. That's what I got for you today. Thank you, as always, for being a part of Steelers Almighty and supporting us the way that you do. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. We appreciate you. We love you guys, and aloha.